What's going on, y'all? This podcast is brought to you by Modern Roots Life. Modern Roots Life is a Christian-owned and operated company, and it's bringing real health back to its roots. They offer powerful, all-natural health supplements such as beef liver, cod liver oil, beef tallow, magnesium, and mineral-rich salts, all sourced the way God intended. Clean, simple, and from the earth. So whether you're looking to boost your energy, restore mineral balance, or just fuel your family with real nourishment, Modern Roots Life has got you covered. Guys, in this community, we're trying to get healthy in our mind, in our body, and our spirit. So don't neglect your health. If you want more information, check out modernrootslife.com and check the link in my description. You know, people often ask me how they can support me. Well, I think it's pretty cool if you can support me by supporting the people who support me, and you get something in return. And being healthy is a pretty good return. Hey, what's going on, y'all? Back with another Ancient Roots of Life and Wellness podcast. Once again, I'm your host, JT. And as always, I got my co-host with me, Josh Truex of Modern Roots Life. What's going on, Josh?
Hey guys, nice to be here. Thanks for having me again. It's always fun. I look forward to our meetings every week.
Absolutely. So is anything you want to get into before we start part four? But four, I was trying to put the right amount of fingers. Part four of our Enoch study. I think we were discussing whether we wanted to take a break from it this week because we've been kind of teasing the idea about all these kind of Old Testament chapters of the prophets being out of order, and I think we will get to that maybe next week. Was there anything else that you were kind of that kind of caught your interest this week, Josh?
Yeah, there's one book that I could actually, I mean, people could just look it up. I've read it before numerous times, but it's a book called Kabbalah Secrets that Christians need to know. And I don't really care if you're from Christian walk, Torah, anybody in faith, if you believe in the Father and Messiah, or just in general, if you're somebody who's into topics of truth and the occult and different things, the movements of the people over there and that in that land over there, it kind of opens the eyes to a lot of different things that you may not be paying attention to, different workings, different attachments, and things like that. You know, Kabbalah being pretty much what Messiah was calling the Pharisees out for, and the Sadducees to a degree. Sadducees, I think, would be a little bit different walk, but the Kabbalah or the Kabbalah is Jewish mysticism, which comes out of Chaldean mysticism, which can be traced all the way back to the roots of Nimrod and different things in Shinar. But the book outlays pretty much it lays it all out for you to understand the different deities, the different worship, the different things, the kind of switcheroo words and different things that are there. The reason I brought it up, I was doing some sessions. I got a great friend of mine, and we do sessions every week. We do everything from business to therapy type stuff, just kind of like keeping myself better for me, better for my family. And he started doing some stuff with my wife, and he's really been getting into the whole God subject. It's been pretty cool to hear him say certain things that he has been saying. But one of the things he did bring up was Sarah, and he was talking to my wife, and he said something about the divine feminine, and immediately like red flags go off left and right for me, because it's something that people get into. They get into the whole God subject, and then if you're not familiar with anything scriptural, or you don't have a good foundation or anything, you were never raised in this, then it's really easy for that subject to kind of split and segue into multiple different avenues you can go into. So I basically pulled that book out, showed it to him, told him he needs to read it, because they put the divine feminine as like the female Holy Spirit, and it doesn't. It's the whole thing. There's always a woman that's involved in the occult esoteric side of it. Their Trinity, their three is Father God, Mother God, and then Son of God. But there's always the divine feminine involved in it. It's called Shekinah. So, and a lot of people will be like, no, that's just the Jewish stuff. That's part of our roots, right? That's the Hebrew roots. And it's really not. It has nothing to do with it. So I encourage everybody out there who's listening to this, read it, check it out, recommend it to your friends. It has a massive amount of information in it. I forget her name, Deanne Loper, or Loper, I think it is her name. But you can, if you just check out Kabbalah Secrets That Christians Need to Know, you'll find it. It's on Amazon. It's everywhere. But I'm going back through that, and it's pretty eye-opening, especially now with coming across the whole little season subject and everything. You go back through all of your old studies and you read them and you're like, man, there's so much more meat that you can chew on once you are taking this kind of different leap and different understanding.
Though, I'll just say this, though. It is kind of interesting. I want to say it's might be Proverbs 8, and it's talking about wisdom as a woman. Like it's calling her. And the her, if you actually really read kind of between the lines, it sounds like the Holy Spirit, just the
Right.
way it's being described. You ever notice that?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even in what is it, Sirach, it talks about wisdom, and it literally says she like the entire way through. It says it was the only thing created before the foundations of the earth and different things like that. But you know, there's a lot of debate on that, and I'm not really here. That's not really kind of like the kind of the poker stab I was kind of taking at that one. It does have some things that can take you down a road, where you get into the female Holy Spirit, in their walk, because you have all the different things in the Sephiroth tree when it comes to Kabbalah, and it's just the way that they portray it. Even if you do believe the Holy Spirit has like a feminine aspect or something like that, I'm not here to knock you for that. I'm just saying when you look at it from their side, from the mystical side. It's also called the wine of Torah, or
Hmm.
their oral Torah. It's literally written out as the oral Torah, and their things like that. So when you go into it, it's like we've talked about before, when you get into what Messiah is rebuking them for, and you start to think like, oh, they're the root of this bloodline, but in a way, it seems like it's kind of that bloodline deviated at some point. But
Yeah,
yeah,
for
it is
sure.
it.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to say, yeah, I'm not, I'm just saying, like, it is interesting that the wisdom that was there before the foundations of the earth was laid, and it seems like it's talking about the Holy Spirit, and it's using she. But yeah, I don't believe that either, because it's kind of like a one-off thing, and I do think that's allegorical the way it's being written. It's interesting. I don't want to say it might be in the Kabbalah too, is that they believe that like the earth is the goddess. So it's kind of like that. So like in the mythologies and kind of in the pantheons of gods, it's like the divine male rains down on the earth, and then stuff grows out from the mother goddess, and so you get into Gaia and all that stuff. And yeah, that's not really biblical, but it is interesting in the way that it's like Christ is going to have a bride, and the bride is the people on the earth. So it's kind of like, I mean, in some kind of ways, we're kind of the divine feminine when we're resurrected, and like, because like, I mean, that it's always like Jerusalem is the woman, and then
Right.
New Jerusalem is the bride. So
Hmm.
Jerusalem is a place, it's a people, and then it's us. It is interesting. There's a lot there, but yeah, from my perspective, it seems like the Sadducees were not as mystical. It's
Mm-mm.
hard to really know what they believed, other than they did not believe in a resurrection. They believe like when you died, that was it, I guess. Which kind of seems. I don't even know where they're getting that from, because it does kind of seem like that you're missing something. It's like, why really be good here if there's really no, you know what I
That's
mean?
more
Like
like
there's,
it's like almost like the atheist point of view, where they just believe you just vanish and go back to the earth or whatever, and that's it. You become something, your body parts become something else through like the minerals or whatever. I don't know. It doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really elaborate on that either when it talks about the Sadducees. And um, but yeah, again, like what would you do if you just died and that's it? Like imagine if nobody could really even think that way, to think that when you die that your thoughts cease, everything ceases, you just go away and there's no more existence to you.
yeah. I mean, I guess that's the way they do describe the underworld or Sheol. Like they know not the dead know nothing. But it does seem like that. I guess maybe they're looking at the law. If you keep the law, you keep the commandments from a very fleshly way, you'll prosper here. And then
Hmm.
when this is over, then that's pretty much the end of it. But yeah, the Pharisees definitely seem like that they're like Kabbalah. They're preaching that Kabbalah stuff, or they're not preaching it. They're secretly carrying out this mystery Babylon religion. I think that's why the Whore of Babylon's got its name, is
Yeah,
because they
yeah.
brought this
Mm.
Chaldean religion back to Jerusalem, dressed up as Torah, or I'm not even sure if they even called it that, but they were
Yeah.
they were acting like they were keeping the law. But yeah, they had some kind of secret knowledge or gnosis. And yeah, that's exactly why, you get into like the Talmud stuff. And I think that's what they're doing. And that's what Jesus is rebuking them for.
It's all commentary, right? I mean, that's like basically when you get into, there's four levels of it when it comes to Kabbalah. Then you have everything that you get into when you talk about the esoteric side of it. A lot of these things from names that you would see everywhere, all written through it. You look at it, all the deities. I don't even like to just spout off all their names, but when you see them in the world, and then you look at this and read anything about that book or that belief, it's literally referencing these deities. A lot of them are humans that have been deified, and they're not some kind of mystical thing. But I do believe the bulk of them would most likely be categorized or lumped into fallen angels who have been deified through whatever they did, and the fact that they know, like we were talking about last week with the disembodied spirits. I mean, they know that they can tap into that. They know they can like ritualistically like create like actions from their or create results from their actions engaging with these entities.
Hmm. Yeah. So I just finished Daniel yesterday. And I was thinking, it would be a good study to maybe to tease for the future would be breaking down Daniel 11. Because that's really confusing. Like, all the king of the north, the king of the south, the king of the north, the king of the south. And it's like it's so far back and forth. And it's talking about, it seems like it's talking about Alexander the Great. And then after he dies, Greek empire kind of splits into four. And then you've got these factions battling back and forth. And I think it's really confusing. I think a lot of people just kind of skip Daniel 11 because it's so confusing. They go like from 9 to 12. But there's so much interesting stuff about that. And I think it's kind of interesting in the way that no one knows are past events. And the Bible doesn't ever, at least the canonical books we have now, do not actually show that Daniel's prophecies were fulfilled, at least parts of them, during the Maccabees and before. And I think that's kind of interesting. It would be kind of good to maybe break that down to kind of show for one, it's like I said, just giving credit to God's power and through his prophets to predict things that are so accurate. And I know that scholars even say that, secular scholars try to say that Daniel was written later because it's so accurate. And people don't know that. And so it is kind of interesting to think like even the abomination of desolation. I do kind of wonder, it's the way it's written, it kind of feels like it should be that Antioch Epiphanes, the fourth, is the one who sets up the abomination of desolation.
Yeah, and that name too, the Antioch, you think of that like I mean it's pretty amazing like the ties that city, then the lineage that name comes from. So, but yeah, Antioch Epiphanes and every like that's I'm about to finish up the first Maccabees, and that name is definitely abundant and profound when it comes to those books and the amount of stuff that's been done, especially when you get into the fourth one and it's just talking about the torture wheel and the different things where they were trying to get a meat pork and
Yeah,
putting them.
I mean, it's the funny part about it is you see like what it says that this man's going to take away the sacrifices. Well, this guy did that. So I mean, it's like it's kind of weird that the Daniel's prophecy is so specific. And it doesn't mention that there's a guy who comes later who's going to do it too. I mean, I'm the way I kind of been reading it recently, especially when I'm reading Daniel 9, when it talks about the Messiah coming, and then the people of the prince to come. And I think people think the prince to come is the Antichrist, but I think that the people of the prince to come is actually Christ.
Messiah. Yeah.
Because it's like it's his people who end up destroying the temple later. And people think they can't wrap their mind around, what do you mean the Romans are his people? Eventually, yes, they are. Like I said, I mean, I feel like the typology is there with Jonah because it's weird that Nineveh is the one who destroys Israel.
Right.
So it's like, but they repented and then they were used as a weapon. And I guess it's that it's kind of interesting. And that's the way that there is that typology where these kings of these places you would not think would give reverence to our God do. And they almost immediately do. Well, I guess it's like they recognize, like they see the power, they see the signs, and they're like,
I want no
well,
part of that.
they'll be like, you know what? Like they say, like if you don't worship Daniel's God, if you don't acknowledge Daniel's God as the Most High, then you're going to be thrown into the lion's den, because they see, like, you know, when the one king throws Daniel in there because of that law that he gets tricked into passing, and then he realizes, dang, Daniel made it out there alive, and he's like, if anybody says anything bad about Daniel's God, do not mess with Daniel's God. But it's like, it's that you go from Babylon, you know that you have Nebuchadnezzar acknowledges God as the Most High, and then you have Persia, and the kings of Persia acknowledge God as the Most High. And I guess it's the thing. It's like the Greeks, we don't really know, like, because again, there's not stories about like a Greek captivity other than the Maccabees. And so, I mean, I wouldn't doubt it if at one point one of the Greek kings said, well, the Hebrews' God is the real one, because eventually, like, God shows them that he is. And we know that just based on our history, that whether you believe it or not, the Roman emperors eventually acknowledged this is the one God. All the other gods, not legitimate, actually outlaws them. And
Yeah,
then still,
Maccabees has that.
yeah, then still today we're talking about the people over in that land still not acknowledging that.
Yeah, the Maccabees does actually have, I forget which one it is, but the one king, he's going away and he just like is in his cart and he just falls to pieces. And then his body just bleh, like kind of falls to pieces. And then I think in the fourth one, is it Epiphanies? I think the fourth, he basically they had him in the dome where they had like trapped them all in there and everything like that. And basically the heavens open up and two massive angels are there to like scare the
Mm-hmm.
life right out of him. So and you got made me remember when I was studying, trying to like confirm a lot of these things with Little Season and everything. And like the Joel 2 army is said to have 5 months, and I believe that's what the length of the Roman siege was against Yasharel or Israel. It's, if I'm not mistaken, that siege that went against it during the temple times was 5 months, and it's a lot of it. I was like thinking at one point, is the Locust Army the Roman army, like the way it came against it? Because it seems like, I know that everybody would be like, no, it's scorpions and this and that. That would be like tribulation times, and it would be, they look for that real fantasy sci-fi type of outcome and result of it, like that actual kind of event taking place. Maybe so. I just thought it was really interesting when I was looking into it. If I'm not mistaken, I'm going to go confirm it again because I haven't looked into it in a while. But I thought that the Roman siege and then that was both 5 months. So I thought that was like, couldn't, too far fetched to be coincidence. But I
Yeah, I
don't.
feel like that some people, again, they they pick a very odd line in the sand where they allegorize certain parts of Revelation, and then certain parts have to be absolutely literal. I still
Hmm.
think that yes, he could definitely be talking about an enemy horde and describe them as a bunch of locusts coming, and it could
Right.
be just an army. But I also think that, again, you have like a spiritual thing that we cannot see, and then you have the physical things that we can see. So there's a spiritual battle going on at the same time as this earthly battle going on. But men, if they were going to write down what they saw, they
Yep.
might not see all the spiritual things that are written in the book of Revelation. Again, you're also saying it's a vision. Again, they see in part, they prophesy in part. So they're getting a vision of what this is going to be. It doesn't mean it's exactly like they say. Because again, you go back and look at the Old Testament, you look about how it's described when the Chaldeans are coming. It sounds like a spiritual thing when they're coming too. In several of the passages talking about this army with these fierce horses and things like that, it does sound more like, if you took it as absolutely literal, it's like, but we know that happened, and that was never described more as than just a very fierce army.
Yeah, it did say it was April 13th to September 8th, but yeah, I mean, I can see it from both ways, obviously. I just think that like what we've learned over studying the Little Season and different things like that, when you go back into like historical, mainstream historical, but you have to study both of them, honestly, to be able to tell the true story. So, but when you go back and look at that, you start to see these things and you look at the events And your brain you can't help but think of these things that are written in scripture and then find out if like the Roman siege was 5 months and then this was 5 months. What other army was supposed to come against them and bring that kind of havoc like to the Joel 2 army? So, and I always wonder too, I've tried reading that book backwards, forwards, from the middle, like on Joel to see, because it's kind of interesting the way that when you read Joel, I believe the 3 chapters, you kind of start the sequence kind of seems like it's like tripping over itself with the writings. Maybe it does go just straight forward on that book, but that'll be really interesting too. I was playing around with ChatGPT and having it build me some graphics. Then I got another one that I wanted to play with. That'd be interesting too with that AI video rendering thing that we were talking about, to see some of these things if we go through and had it like kind of build any kind of things like that, because some of that stuff is going to be used for some very bad reasons. It's already being used for that, but it's nice when we actually get to use something like that for Abba's glory, and something that's going to help edify his children.
Yeah, no, but it's interesting. Of course, I still think back about the Jewish-Roman War and just like, what are the odds? Like, what are the odds that it mentions this certain time that Jerusalem's given over to the nations to trample on, and it's 42 months, and 42
Yeah,
months is what history says the Jewish-Roman War was. Like
that's
that. I
just
mean, I don't know how people can just write that off
and
as nothing.
it's written 4 times in 2 chapters. You have chapter 11. It has 2 sets in chapter 11 and 12 of Revelation where it says 1360 days. Is 1360 or 1390?
Well, it's interesting. It's 1,260 days,
Yeah,
and then it
1260.
says, "Blessed are the ones who are faithful." Was it 1,315 days or something? I've always like
There's
wondered
1335 or something like that, and then there's the 12.
something like that.
But 1260 is 42 months,
Yeah,
and
1260 is 42 months.
I think it's trying to show you 2 different sequences that are happening, because you have Revelation 11 with the 2 witnesses and everything that goes through there. And then you get into like, obviously Revelation 12 seems to be like like just a synopsis almost of the whole kind of thing there, ending that chapter saying that, what's interesting is that word used there at the end, because it says, what does it say? Blessed are ye, those who keep the commandments and the testimony of Messiah. And I forget what it is. It's Revelation 12. What's the
Oh,
last
well,
word?
yeah. Well, I know it says that. I know it says those are the saints that overcame the word of their testimony, or the blood of the Lamb, the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives unto death. And it does say that when it talks about the people who did not take the mark in Revelation 20.
Yeah, it's 12, 17. That's what it was. There's the word that it's referencing there. It's loipos. I forget what the word is though in that verse. The rest of her offspring. That's what it is. It's the same exact word used only for the foolish virgins in Matthew. That was pretty mind blowing to me, that it's because everybody thinks of like, the left behind and all
Mm-hmm.
of that, and then it does seem like there's a group that in the beginning of tribulation or whenever that took place seemed like, because you even read it in the whatever it is, the something of Solomon, I forget what the, not Songs of Solomon, but the other one, but chapter 5, and it talks about like people looking up going, I thought we were the righteous, like who are these people who are counted
Are you talking
amongst
about the
the,
wisdom of Solomon?
probably Wisdom of Solomon. It was chapter 5, and it talks about that, where people are like down there thinking they were the righteous ones, and this other group was like above them, like looking down at them. And then here it talks about, in a way, because you got 3 verses. It's Revelation 12, 17, 14, 12, and then there's one other one where it's talking about these 2 different groups, like the elect and the righteous, or different
Mm-hmm.
things like that. But like 12, 17, it uses that word loipos, and the only other place I saw it being used was it's the word that's used for the foolish virgins. So I thought that was interesting, like the comparison there, because if there's the wise virgins that were, obviously were ready and taken in, and then there's
Mm-hmm.
foolish virgins, it just makes me wonder, was there a group that was left to be trialed through that time to see if they would actually give in, or if they would stand for Abba? Just an interesting connection there.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Do you want to get into the Enoch study?
Yeah, we can jump in early today. That'd be cool.
But first, Josh, Tell us about Modern Roots Life.
Yeah, so Modern Roots Life, we're a faith-based company. We've been in business I've been building this business for about 20 years, learning different things and techniques and methods that we've implemented into the company. We have a whole lineup of products that are all made from food. We try and get away from the world of synthetics and fillers. You don't have to question any product that's on our site because they're all 100% lab tested. We don't trust anybody when it comes to the sourcing and everything. I pride myself on praying and seeking Abba for him to lead me to the proper sources that are going to give you guys the very best products. And one big thing that we do have a 1 week lead time on all of our products. We've actually been shipping twice a week we're getting back to that. So pretty much orders are going out within 3 to 4 days now. Sometimes a little bit longer depending on when it falls in the week, but it's because we make every product fresh to order. So your product isn't sitting for more than days or a week or two before it's shipped out to you. Whereas what I saw in the industry, most products and most foods that we're buying in the store that are prepackaged have been sitting for months, if not over a year, before they're sold to you with your hard-earned money as a fresh product. And I don't believe that's what justifies your hard-earned money. So please check us out. If you have any friends or family that can't afford it, please send them our way. We don't charge for coaching. We don't charge for consults. We help people with product if they can't afford it, as long as they're actually going to do the program. And we have also, if people are trying, we try and encourage everybody to do our payback program, which allows you 60 days to get the bulk sent to you for whatever orders you're trying to, or product you're trying to get. And then we allow you to pay it back with no fees over 60 days. So just wanted to touch on that because I know a lot of people will come and think certain things. We are 30 to 50% below the market for lab tested products, but I know for some people it seems expensive for certain things that they're trying to do. But we're not here just to only help the people who can afford it. We're truly trying to live this like a ministry. So thank you guys. We appreciate you. All right. So 17, ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
Are you ready? So chapter 17, he says, still in the vision, continuing at the point where Enoch was told to come near. Chapter 17 is similar to Revelation 8, 11, and 12, he says. That's an interesting take. So 17:1, I was taken forward inside to join the one who was there, moving toward that place burning like a fire. When I thought about what I myself saw, he was comparable to mankind. Continuing, I was led towards this place, with rain falling upon the summit of a mountain. The rain was coming from inside the uppermost part of heaven. I saw that one who was there in his splendor, along with thunderings, and looking toward the uttermost parts therein of its depths was a bow of fire that will diminish the fallen watchers by pruning them with a sword of fire and bright lights to imprison them. I was taken unto this living water, which was speaking from within this fire during the sunset. It is this living water that will make the fallen watchers prisoners, all of them at the setting sun, the end of the age. I went forward until this point where I came to the preparation of this fire, which was to pour down how it should into the water. Then it, like an enormous ball, spread out inside the ocean at the setting sun, the end of the age. I watched everything this enormous ball had prepared, up until the point where this massive ball caused darkness that happens at a distant time. I then saw forward to the time when all who are flesh of flesh glittered in brightness. I watched the darkened regions where the mercies of this living water poured out, which all will realize. Then I saw forward to all that entered, of those raised from the earth, and then I had an understanding of all this to happen. Much to talk about there. You want to just keep going?
No, I mean that's pretty interesting. I mean, it's like so it's saying that the place where they're at is under a bunch of water. I mean, I guess, again, that kind of fits with biblical cosmology, where you would have the deep. We've talked about that when we were talking about Pirates of the Caribbean and all that stuff, and about how Davy Jones' locker is like hell, Sheol. Davy Jones was the ghost of Jonah. And yeah, so that's interesting. Yeah, so and it kind of makes sense too, like the angels in the book of Revelation were chained up under a river. So they were like under the water. Yeah,
that's pretty interesting. Yeah, for sure.
I mean, because I guess the way that, like, what do you picture when you hear chained up under the river? Does that mean, like, is it possible that maybe we think of a depth of a river and it's like we're thinking about the ground under the river? But what if it's talking about, like, that there's entrances? I think it's what it says in 2nd Ezra's, it talks about I think Uriel, the angel, tells Ezra that there's entrances or exits of hell in the sea.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think that maybe he's talking about like that there's entrances in the Euphrates River that lead down to hell.
And that'd be an interesting take. We see that like with that Russian drill site that went like what 7 miles down, and they said the deeper they got, they were hearing all this stuff, and that'd be a trip to say the least. You know, you going down, all of a sudden you're starting to hear that. I mean, a lot of people said that from CERN and everything, where a lot of the scientists who were originally there bailed because of the kind of events that they said were starting to take place and the weird stuff that started to happen.
Have you ever heard about a Haditha Dam?
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, Haditha Dam. I want to say it's I think it's in Iraq, and it's on what they tell us is the Euphrates River. And then there's some kind of a underground military base for the United States there, and supposedly, yeah, like you get to like the lower levels of it, and that's what people say. They hear screams and all kinds of stuff. I mean, is that true? I mean, you guys decide if you believe that or not. But it is interesting. It is interesting. It does make me think about kind of the invasion of Iraq. And I just did a little bonus episode of JT's Mixtape the other day, and I was talking again about them discovering the Tomb of Gilgamesh, and then also like the idea that when they invaded Iraq, instead of destroying the Iraqis' army, they went and made this beeline to Baghdad. And then, before you know it, there was all these things stolen from the museum in Babylon or Baghdad. Yeah, which is Sumerian stuff.
Yeah, that was pretty interesting too. And then when they came back, like there was a whole bunch of stuff missing. But the crazy thing is all the valuables were left. That's what's wild. Like all the gold, all the so many of the other things. Like for people who would plunder something, you would think they would at least take that too.
Well, they said. I want to say it was a general, maybe it wasn't a general, but it was somebody who was like real high up in the United States military. He did this press conference and he said these people knew what they were looking for. So it wasn't just amateurs breaking in there. Like they said they left a lot of fake stuff and they took certain things and they went like right down to the basement. They didn't take the stuff that was out in the open. They knew what they were looking for.
Yeah.
So they were saying it was an inside job. And I'm sure it was an inside job, but not... they probably didn't work at the museum. They probably worked in 3-letter agencies.
Yeah, it's definitely, I mean, for you to go in the midst of that, there's this conflict that just popped off at that time, and the magnitude of what's being spread around, all the different stuff on CNN and everything like that, like live going in where, it's like a live movie happening, displaying all the events and stuff, and they're like, oh, we're gonna be over here, gonna head over here and check this out. So
I mean, it does make me think, like that people have, fleshly people, more political type people, they say, oh, these wars were about oil, but there's a lot of oil actually in the United States. They always say that if we actually drilled, there's more oil here than the Middle East.
Yeah, Texas alone is gigantic.
Yes, but they don't want to. I mean, for one, it makes sense that when you sell a product, you can charge more for it if there's less of it. Yep. So they really have no incentive to drill at all. But what I think is interesting is the oil might be the cover story, and it might be that, these sites, and whether you believe that that's really the biblical locations. I mean, I still think that it is. I still think because there's so many other places. Like, what about Iraq? There's obviously really crazy stuff there, like the, kind of like the Assyrian-looking motif, and they used to have that gate there and stuff like that. It sure looks like some of the old empires described in the Bible.
I wonder, really do, like, with the whole earthquake, like when it took place, when did the continent split up? Because then you could really compile like all that together, and if you took those two regions and put them together, you would have like east of the Mississippi could have been like the beginning of Babylon, like going over, because there's still like the whole question of Quebec. Is it really where like that Mount Babel is, that whole location that's there? Because that's like I was writing you that day. It's like in the land of Acadia, which is Nimrod's language. That was like one for me that.
Shinar.
But there's still so much, you can't discount how much more is over there. It could easily be like reading Maccabees. I was always like, is that Egypt over there, the Ptolemaic? Like that Egypt, and because that was a more modern. That was kind of like different than the Mitzrayim Egypt you see that they exodus out of.
Yes,
but it's
yes.
I don't know. It's I used to be set on like America's Egypt and this and that and everything, and now I just try and keep an open mind, open ears, and try and see and learn as much as I can. I don't know if Abba ever wants us to know that, definitively.
Well, I would say I give room for the possibility that empires like Babylon, because I say that my working theory right now is that the Greco-Roman architecture around the world is evidence that Rome was there.
Was it? Yeah.
So what if it was similar in the way that, okay, so you think about the statue. The head is gold. So that's like the best one, kind of. I mean, that's kind of what it's describing, right? Is that this is the greatest empire. And then when Daniel interprets Nebuchadnezzar's second dream, it's about this tree that grows up and it shades the whole earth. All the animals. He's given dominion over everything. So what if Babylon actually did conquer the known earth? I mean, like, maybe not the known earth, but I mean, like, the whole earth. Like,
yeah,
literally.
You should. That's a great point that you should see. If we're going to sit here and say that Rome was everywhere and it was so vast and we see all the evidence there, well, that was far more recent than Babylon, right? So you would think that a lot more of that. And plus, if Rome went through doing stuff, maybe those guys were like, I don't like this. Blow that thing up, like destroy that, tear that down. And you wouldn't see as much, like it's such a vast amount of relics and remnants, but you make a good point that if he did, there's no question. Scripture literally tells us that he had dominion over the whole earth. We know that he probably had stuff everywhere. If the continents were all still together, then think about how much we're all like, oh, how did these guys, go across there? But what if they didn't have to? What if that time still had continents all together, that whole transatlantic continent?
Well, we already said, I mean, I think that we've talked about it before. A lot of people believe the Phoenicians got to America.
Oh yeah,
so
that's yep.
Did the Phoenicians ever have an empire as great as Nebuchadnezzar's?
Yeah,
or not biblically. We don't biblically. We're not told that they were. And again, the head of the statue is gold.
Yeah, and
then silver is Persia. So Persia has a mighty empire too. So how far did the Persians get? Probably really far. The Greeks, at least even history tells us, they got all the way to India. And I think that's the crazy part, is to think that the Romans, which history says was way longer. And then we're told that they stopped before they got as far as Alexander the Great.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
No, it makes no sense. It makes absolutely zero sense. So the point is, if Alexander the Great, and you think about how short a time period the Greeks ruled, Alexander the Great was he 30? He was 33 years old when he died, I think.
Yeah, that's what they say.
Yeah, and so you think about how young he was and how much they accomplished in a very short amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
I think that maybe that's the thing where people would say, "Oh, this is Egypt." It's well, maybe the Egyptians actually got to places, and then they might have set up shop there. And there's just evidence again of a worldwide connected civilization going all the way back to the first dynasties of Egypt and stuff like that. And obviously they're probably just coming along fighting old sites that were probably from the days of Noah.
Yeah, like Atlantis, if that's I think every single one that people describe from those ancient civilizations, all of them, they pretty much kicked everybody's butt and spread everywhere. Why wouldn't they? I mean, if they and we see for Rome, I mean, they just took over people and then made them do their bidding. So I think it makes sense to see.
Conscripted people. Well, the only reason we're told that they didn't is because they couldn't. But we're saying that the people back then were super advanced, and so if they could have, if they wanted to. So
for sure, I think they might have had a more something that wouldn't have been as familiar to us with our modern machine and clear cut stuff and everything like that. Where it's but they might have had better metalworking than we're led to believe and different things like that. If Satan really wanted to get rid of this and scrub this narrative and change it to where people didn't know the amount of technology and different things they had, then obviously he would go through it. He's had so much time. I mean, think about what happens in 60 years. He literally revamps everybody's brain like every 50 to 70 years. It goes in, and he could just in one generation, entire thoughts can be changed and destroyed. So just imagine what he could do in 250 years or 2,500 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. All right, you want to continue? Chapter 18?
Yeah. Then I saw the richness of the spirits present there, interlaced with all creation, in the place where the birds fly, down to the surface of the earth. I saw this richness in the cornerstone on the surface of the earth, and I saw the 4 angels that have hidden this event from the world, waiting for heaven to reveal as a floodgate the presence of this cornerstone. You just literally talked about those 4 angels, if that's what it's referencing right there.
Well, I don't know. That sounds like I don't know. So it's saying the cornerstone. So I mean, it sounds like, this is where you get the idea that Christ is the cornerstone?
Yeah, he said, I mean, obviously he's saying that right there.
Because he's waiting for heaven to reveal as a floodgate the presence of this cornerstone.
I mean, that's really hard to what would it be that, because it's talking about the spirits interlaced with all creation, the place where birds fly down to the surface of the earth. So,
yeah, because you still have 4 prominent good angels described too. Mm-hmm. You know, like in Enoch. We'll get into that in a little bit.
And that word too, used in Revelation, I believe, is restrained for those 4 angels that it says. It's like they're being held back. So I don't know if they're necessarily like, maybe they are bad, but or maybe they are just Abba's another kind of day of reckoning thing.
Yeah, I kind of wonder too is when it talks about in Daniel 12 about how the restrainer. Have you ever considered that the restrainer is restraining these angels?
Yeah, that's really interesting to think.
Yeah,
too.
Because it says in Revelation 9 that they're let out, but it was like, it's like the one who's restraining is going to get out of the way.
That's a good connection. All right, 18:3. I beheld how spirits hovered upward towards heaven. However, those spirits existed in the middle, contained there between heaven and earth, where they stood in their strength from heaven. We're going to skip that nonsense right there below. Talking about comets. It's pretty interesting if people just look at it. There's some stuff, when they get into like comets and meteors, I think if everybody just understood and studied 2 different types of precipitation, you have gaseous precipitation, and then you have regular precipitation. Regular precipitation goes up and then water comes down. You have other ones where chemicals and different things are going up and they collect and then they, form. It's like a good hypothesis on that too, but it's not just one type of precipitation. Okay, so 18:4. I observed spirits that returned to their region in heaven, but not like all heavenly bodies and luminaries set that encircled the sun. I then saw spirits above the earth, spirits which carry dark things. Then I saw this envoy releasing the darkness and watched the evil inside the ground with a significant effect up into the sky. And they passed over from its southeast of the globe. The envoy was in a sound there, beheld during the night, and then in the day towards 7 islands from mountains made from magnificent stone. They passed over 3 times towards the dawn, and after these 3 times pulled out towards the southeast. So he's talking about the globe of the thing that he's referencing in chapter 17, right? That's what it's obviously talking about.
The southeast of the globe. Yeah, he's talking about a big ball. Of course, I said I'm trying to see where it says in my R.H. Charles version. So what does it say? Is it getting you uncomfortable? That's talking about a globe.
No, I just wondered because it wasn't in 17 right here. He's talking about
17:5 says. It says, or 18:5 says, I saw the winds on the earth carrying the clouds. I saw the pass of the angels. I saw at the end of the earth in the firmament of heaven above. I proceeded and saw a place which burns day and night, where there are 7 mountains of magnificent stones, 3 towards the east and 3 towards the south. Well, that's way different.
Yeah, this one, see, because right here in 17:5, it says, then like an enormous ball. That's what I was wondering if it's referencing
I thought it was talking about I thought the way that sounded was like the sun.
Yeah. I mean, maybe, for sure. Could be.
Okay, what is it? Yeah, 7. Yeah, 7. It's saying 7 islands. Yeah, so I remember we talked about this before about how these 7 mountains of magnificent stones, and it starts to describe all the different types of these mountains.
Yeah, there is the seven fallen angels that are referenced, and they're held away at the end of heaven. So there's that. And, I think a lot of times that, like you said when we were talking before, that they're talked about like almost like titans. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean like a literal mountain. There is plenty of literal mountains in Scripture, but sometimes I think it is talking about either like dynasties or kings or fallen angels.
Yeah, I can't stress this enough. This is a vision, right? This is a vision, right? That he's getting. He's seeing things, but I mean, he's seeing things probably from a perspective of like that. Is this seeing in almost like a different dimension? You know what I'm saying? Like that we're seeing. He's getting a vision of something that is really hard for our finite brains to understand. So he's describing this the best way he can, right?
Yeah, for sure. It has to be. And plus, to think about the time that this is at. If this is before like the flood, before like everything, I mean, people obviously thousands of years later would have a lot more reference points in their mind of things they could relate it to or compare it to and stuff like that. But for this, even like John in Revelation, some of the stuff where people try and make it out to be like, oh, it's talking about planes, it's talking about this. I mean, maybe so, but I think it's just a more primitive way of describing things at that time. So,
I think to me, it's like like I had a dream, and I'm trying to
yeah,
explain this dream to you, and it's like you would know that some things could be symbolic and some things could be literal in this dream,
yeah,
and I would
100%.
acknowledge that they could be too, because we'd be like, what does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because we know that dreams rarely play out like completely just exactly how reality would be.
Right.
You know, I mean, of course, the best examples are Daniel's interprets Nebuchadnezzar's dreams. Joseph interprets the Pharaoh's dream. We know that
Yep.
that's not exactly how those things played out.
Exactly, yeah. All right, 18:6. Then I saw from the eastern region of the globe those who are from this stone, as nations allied together. I saw the joining of they who are from this nation, where blood has collected after death. I saw this nation joining, which healed them from joining with the nation coming from its southeast direction of the globe, having a fair complexion.
Do you think
This
this?
is,
Wait, so this guy who translated this, he's obviously a glober. Do you think that he used that word globe because that's what he believes?
I think that's what I was trying to figure out. Like, is he referencing something else in here, or is he just saying, because I mean, why wouldn't he have used planet there, instead or something? But he definitely does not believe in biblical cosmology the way that we do. That's for sure. You can see it all the way, especially when he gets into the luminaries and stuff later in chapters 70 through 80s.
Mm-hmm.
It's very specific to the fact that he does not believe in any kind of flat plane.
Mm-hmm.
So 18. This that encircled was affected, which is in heaven, in the place of its positioning by the Most High. This moon that looks like white alabaster possessed redness in its position, made to look red by dust. And he says volcanic eruption. That'd be an interesting take. I saw a burning fire existing by being held inside regions. Then I looked to that place in the region where the earth revolves towards the east, which prevails on the land. There I saw ice which melted into water. Then I saw that which is gushing up from the deep in the earth, having columns of fire above them in the sky. Then I looked towards these columns which contained fire and came down. This bursting was not from previously known and counted ruptures, and not from previously known flows high above the globe. Yeah, he's talking about the globe. On account of this flowing that I had seen, it never happened that it did not establish itself to the height of heaven, nor did it persist where the birds fly, but in the lower parts above the earth. It was not to the height of heaven, and it was not where the birds fly, but in the sky's lower section towards the surface, and within this height. It is not birds. Instead, this is from he who exists in sickness. Why does it say R18? You see that? It's like chapter 11 has an R in front of it. Like it says from, like he's going to say from the R.H. Charles or something. He added it in to complete this. That's
Yeah, you know what's funny? As I was even looking at mine, I saw like that there's a 5 and you skip right to 7. So what does it say? 11. This is so much different. And I saw an abyss with columns of heavenly fire, and among them I saw columns of fire fall, which were beyond measure, alike towards the height and towards the depth.
That's all it says there for 11?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's a lot more contracted.
Yeah, it's interesting to see the differences because they do seem a lot different. Because it's
When
like
I
obviously I feel like I'm reading this for the first time, reading this version.
Yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to share it because we have, I've
Mm-hmm.
read the R.H. Charles, and there's 3 or 4 solid versions that people have. Aaron Miller has his, different things like that, but this one just seemed. Sometimes he seems to elaborate a little too much, especially when you read some and the other ones. It's like one sentence, and his is a paragraph. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
how do you pull that? But then part of you wonders, like, does the Ge'ez really offer that?
Mm-hmm.
And it's really interesting how Ge'ez, the modern form of Ge'ez, is called Amharic, which is an anagram for Aramaic. It's like almost exactly the same.
You know what? I wonder. I can't help but think when he's talking about where the birds fly. Does he substitute that for where firmament?
Nor did it persist where the birds fly. Yeah, I wonder. But in the lower parts above the earth,
Yeah, because
the
it's just
sky's lower section. Well, he says the sky's lower section towards the surface.
saying in my version.
Oh, it's
Okay,
a but in the sky section.
nor persist where the birds fly. Yeah, mine just says heaven.
Oh, interesting.
Heavens.
Yeah.
Yeah, heavens. Heavens. It's like he's trying to be specific to saying that it's not heaven. It's
Yeah.
just where the birds fly. But I do notice that he doesn't use the word firmament at all.
Mm-hmm. It's pretty interesting how people do that with, when they don't see scriptural cosmology that way, where
Mm-hmm.
they'll almost directly ignore the thing that was created all by itself on an entire day. That's what's
I
wild to
know,
me.
yeah, it is wild. But yeah, it's also just that it's kind of like it's trying to describe almost too much to me because I get when the Bible talks about heaven, it's not always talking about where God's at. It's talking
Right.
about the heavens.
Yep.
We can, we're not completely rubes. We can figure some of this stuff out just based on the context.
Yep. 1812. It was remarkable when I saw in that place of the stars how 7 had their regions that had become powerful, and they made a sound like who is of a spirit belonging to them who asked me to petition for them. This sound was the announcement of these angels existing at that time of the end. For heaven and earth, these will remain cast into prison because becoming at that remote time the express desire of that powerful voice in heaven. These are the stars overturned on account of that fire which is bright. These stars departed from the command of the Most High because of that morning star. This overturning did not happen by enclosing themselves. They remained enraged within a prison at the end, enraged because they lost, predicated on what they did in secret. How far do we want to go? 19 short, 20 is awesome. That's all the archangels. 21.
You know what? What's interesting is go back to that part where it's talking about the 7 stars or 7 angels. Saw the place of the stars. How 7 had their regions that had powerful when they made the sound like one who was a spirit belonging to them who asked me to petition for them. I'm not sure if this is exactly what it's talking about, but have you ever heard that? I want to say there's another book that talks about like these 7 stars, and it's like it has something to do with wisdom. And I want to say that it relates to many people believe the Pleiadians. The Pleiadians have like a cluster of 7 stars, and that's something that's it's a godly thing. Of course, now it gets into the weird New Agers where they talk about these alien race from the Pleiadians, but there is something about those 7 stars.
That's pretty interesting, yeah. And then there's how many wandering stars? There was 9, right? But now there's
I think when they say the 10th planet, they tie in Nibiru, right? But then they have to include the Earth. So so that there could be, if you take out Pluto, there's 8, right?
Yeah, if you take out Earth, there's 7.
Well, no, I think there's not. I think Earth plus Pluto is 9.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
then
with
Nibiru
Pluto, it's
is
9,
10.
yeah, yeah.
So you take out, if you take out Earth, and Pluto would be 7. So that would be interesting because that actually seems kind of legit then. But it's kind of
I
weird.
mean,
It's weird again. Why do they have, like, why do they ever decide to put Pluto in there? When then
yeah,
they
that's
later say,
weird.
oh, it's way too small. It's smaller than moons of some planets or something.
Yeah, it is interesting why they would have ever added it and then taken it back out. I don't know, maybe to add confusion or something like that to take away. If it was just labeled as 7, then maybe we would start connecting certain things like this.
Yeah, possibly. Okay, you want
Trying
to
to think.
read how big is
19,
19?
19's quick. 20 is pretty fast because it's just the angels.
Let's
And you got
let's read through 20.
Then Uriel speaking to me because of he being in that place where the fallen watcher had come together, who were living with the women. Uriel in that spot said, when they remained with these women, from this union came numerous spirits made manifest with their own nature. These spirits purposed to be profane towards mankind and misled mankind in a way how to worship these evil spirits, and to worship these spirits that have dominion as gods. In that great day of passing judgment on account of that day, they will have their sentence passed, bringing these demons to an end. The women themselves, for their part, misled the fallen watchers to maintain a peacefulness with them. I, Enoch, have seen what was revealed by his capacity to the uttermost end time. There was nothing held back in a way how I had seen in a vision, being a man. So, chapter 20. This one gave the names and functions of. Wait, what? Why does this one
This
gave the
one.
names and functions of they who were there, who were those holiest of angels who were vigilant? Is that saying it's a capitalized one? Is it talking about Father?
Yeah, that's weird. It's I guess you have to
Yeah.
get down there because who is it else would it be talking about?
Yeah, I wonder. Guess I mean, if maybe that one, I don't know if he has like the way it's translated from there would have significance. Yeah, that's a good thing you got that book there, cross reference.
And mine says, and these are the names of the holy angels who watch.
So Uriel, one of the holiest of angels, who is aware of noise coming from the trembling of mankind. Raphael, man, that's amazing. Imagine the amount of sound he hears. Raphael, one of the holiest angels, who is aware of the region of the chamber for the souls of mankind. Raguel, one of those holiest of angels, who will be the one to take vengeance for the world against the fallen watchers. Michael, one of the holiest of angels, who is over what would be suitable for mankind for the instruction of the heritage of the Creator. Serakel, one of the holiest of angels, who is over the untouchable spirit of children before they breathe the breath of life they did not have. Gabriel, one of the holiest of angels, to watch over she who is vital by using cherubim and directing the conclusion through her described to the serpent. Whoa. That's really interesting.
I'm gonna have to read this version after we do this just to cross reference.
Yeah, I mean that's the end of 20 if you want to.
Oh really? It
Yeah.
actually there's one last angel too.
Yeah, I know it's supposed to be 7. I don't see it on here.
Okay, so I'll just read all of 20 and it
Oh,
says
he says right there. It says the Gaiz text mentions only 6 angels and so does the 1821, 1882, and 1893 versions of the Book of Enoch from R.H. Charles. It is only the 1912 version from R.H. Charles, which includes a 7th angel. I cannot find any justification from the DSS text from the Gaiz for adding the 7th angel. That's really interesting.
yeah, but it's so interesting like that even the duties seem different. Okay, so and these are the names of the holy angels who watch. Uriel, one of the holy angels who is over the world and over Tartarus.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's a big
That's
difference.
mind-blowing difference.
It's a big difference right there. Raphael, one of the holy angels who is over the spirits of men. Raguel, one of the holy angels who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries. Michael, one of the holy angels, to wit, that is set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. Seraquel, one of the holy angels who is set over the spirits who sin in the spirit. Gabriel, one of the holy angels who is over paradise and the serpents and the cherubim. So it must be like the seraphim. Remiel, one of the holy angels who God set over those who rise. But yeah, that's interesting that Uriel's over the world and over Tartarus.
That's really interesting. Even Michael, I thought was going to be spot on with this one, but then it adds in chaos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, that's interesting.
That's a that's not just like a slight difference. That's almost like an entirely different text.
I'm telling you, like I said, the more I'm like listening to you read this, I'm like, I don't remember any of this stuff because then I go read my version. It's because it's not the same version. It's like it's completely different.
Yep. It's totally different. So you want to call it good at 20?
Yeah, we can read. Do we say 20?
21 is pretty decent. Yeah, 21's got some length to it.
Yeah, we
Do you
can
want?
we can stop for here and just
Okay.
21 actually is pretty good in this book. I want to say that I know that it's about the final place and punishment of the angels.
Mm.
So this gets into it's funny 21 is not long in my version.
Really?
It's not that long. I don't know. I mean it would take
That's
me
what I was. That's what I was saying before. Is like I feel like some of the things that he did was like much more elaborate than what you find in the RH. Or there's the other version. I need to look it up so I can actually reference it properly. But there's another version that's kind of out there in the world that you'll find in a lot of copies. That's not the RH Charles.
Yeah, I would say that it would only take me a few minutes to read the thing I've got right here, 321.
Wow, you can go ahead and read it. Why not?
Yeah, let's just read it and then we'll get back and we'll go back and we'll get back to the geese. Okay, so this is chapter 21. It says, "And I proceeded where things were chaotic, and I saw something horrible. I saw neither a heaven above nor a firmly founded earth, but a place chaotic and horrible. And there I saw 7 stars of heaven bound together in it, like great mountains burning with fire. Then I said, for what sin are they bound? And what account have they been cast in hither? Then said Uriel, one of the holy angels, who was with me, and was chief over them, said, Enoch, why dost thou ask? And why art thou eager for the truth? These are the number of the stars of heaven, which have transgressed the commandment of the Lord, and are bound till 10,000 years. The time entails by their sins, and are consummated. And from thence I went to another place, which was still more horrible than the former. I saw a horrible thing, a great fire which burnt and blazed. A place was cleft as far as the abyss, being as full a great descending columns of fire. Neither its extent or magnitude could I see, nor could I see its conjuncture. Then I said, how fearful is this place, how terrible to look upon. Uriel answered me, one of the holy angels who was with me, and said, unto me, Enoch, why hast thou such fear and affright? And I answered, because this is a fearful place, because of the spectacle of pain. And he said unto me, this place is the prison of the angels, and here they will be imprisoned forever. So, I mean, that wasn't that long, really.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, then chapter 22 gets into, maybe I just read this. This is really short. Actually, the next couple chapters are really short. And so this is chapter 22. And thence I went to another place, and showed me in the west, and another great and high mountain, and of hard rock. And then Raphael answered, one of the holy watchers who was with me, and said unto me, these hollow places have been created for this very purpose, for the spirits of the souls of the dead shall assemble therein. Ye that all the souls and children of men should assemble here. And these places have been made to receive them till the day of their judgment, until their appointed period, till the period to be appointed, till that great judgment comes upon them. And he answered me, saying, this is the spirit which came forth from Abel, whom his brother Cain slew, and who makes his suit against him till the seed is destroyed from the face of the earth, and his seed is annihilated from among the seed of men. So that's about hell.
Yep.
Interesting stuff. I mean, the Book of Enoch is, again, it's crazy for people to tell you not to read it.
Yeah. There's some of those books that you read that you could tell, like, okay, maybe this is not written like spiritually inspired, kind of like as one of the texts that we should be reading, but a lot of these ones, you know, Second Esdras, 2 First Ezra's, they're great. and they go right along with the theme of the canon. I don't feel like you get a lot of stuff like we've been talking about that basically seems to kind of fill in the gaps where certain stuff is quoted in the canon and you don't understand where it's being pulled from. And it kind of sheds light on that. So I'm
Yeah, to
excited
me,
to
it
go
does
through.
feel like the biggest critics maybe haven't even read it, or it's like they're really trying to instill fear in people that you shouldn't look into this when you're like, there's nothing in here that if you knew the one true way to go to the Father through his Son, you would never read that and say, oh, now I'm confused. This is, again, this is fleshing out kind of other details about things that, I mean, they're great mysteries and we all want to know them. But it doesn't, this book would not take Christians off track, in my opinion.
I'll tell you a story because I was very like gung ho to defend the Book of Enoch, and I had a brother, good friend of mine, and he would constantly rebuke it. Like every time I would like get off of Zooms, we'd have big Zoom gatherings. He would tell everybody, to be cautious and wary and like different things like that. And he wrote this like basically with some other guy. He wrote a breakdown of all the things that he thought was wrong with it. And lo and behold, I had not seen him for a while, and then I see him at one of the feast gatherings, and he comes running up to me, and he's like, brother, I got to tell you the story and what happened to me, and I'm no longer against the Book of Enoch. I'm like thinking in my mind, like, whoa, this is crazy. And we didn't get to talk to him until a little bit later, but he tells me, he goes, right there, he was pointing at the tent where we had like all the gatherings. He's like, right there, Abba told me is where he was going to like do something to him in front of everybody that would have humbled him like crazy. Like, and I think he would have like fallen to the ground or something would have hit him or something like that. But he was like shown this in a dream, he said. And he couldn't like make any sense of it. And then he said he was in his kitchen, and I think he was listening to the Book of Enoch, and he said that he felt like he immediately became paralyzed, like almost fully paralyzed, where he like fell. He almost like he said he almost hit his head on his island, and just like fell almost to the complete to the ground.
Like the middle of the day.
Yeah, this is the middle of the day. He's just standing there, and this guy doesn't drink, doesn't do anything, like so. He said he just lost all function in his body, almost to the point where he fell completely down. But he said enough to where he could catch himself, and he said he heard a profound voice in his head telling him, basically, loosely paraphrasing, that you do not rebuke my scripture, you do not rebuke my writings, you do not speak against them. And then he was shown that vision or that dream, and you could tell when I ran up to him when I first saw him at the feast, like he had just seen the setup. Like when you get there, nobody knows what it's going to look like. We bring in a different tent, we bring in this or whatever. So nobody really knew. Like we didn't have like a meeting and then it was like drawing diagrams and stuff. So he said that he had seen it in the dream, and when he showed up there, he was deathly terrified because when he got out of the car, he turned and there's the tent. And that's the exact tent that was in his dream.
Wow.
And then the stage was exactly like he saw in the dream. And he said that Abba was, I don't think he said he was going to like take his life in front of everybody, but he was going to make it like there was going to be an example made, because he was going around. I mean, to the point where me and him, I had two brothers who were brand new to the faith, and I'm like counseling them in a Zoom meeting, and he decided to come in, and he gets into this like heated kind of display on rebuking the Book of Enoch, and I just went to town. Like I got riled up, and probably not my most righteous moment. I mean, I wasn't like going off on the guy or anything, but I was not doing it from just like a factual point. I was doing it with some some energy behind it, and I was getting emotional a little bit. Not to where I needed to be told to calm down or anything like that, but just enough to where I was very passionate about the Book of Enoch. And I'm like, you can't do this. These guys are brand new. Like you can't have these kind of conversations. They're babies in the walk. Like they don't know anything, and you're literally derailing them. And then right after that is when he said all that stuff happened. And he came back to me and like gave me a big hug, and he was like, I must apologize, brother. Like this is, Abba corrected me, and I think I feel you're definitely right. And he said, the more that I read this book, the more I see what you're talking about now. And I'm like, that's why I told you, bro. Like, you didn't even read the book, and
Right,
you're
right.
you're slashing it and throwing it off the shelves. But my buddy had given him one of the thin, like, Hallelujah Scriptures versions of the Book of Enoch. And he said, like, when this happened, he remembered in his house that he, like, slumped down and he looked over, and boom, there's, like, that book is, like, staring at him in the bookshelf. This is the Book of Enoch, and he went to it. So that's kind of one. I'm not to say that, like, that should convince everybody, like, on the Book of Enoch. But I do feel like, in my personal experience, like I told you before, some pretty prominent characters in the Christian and Torah and everything, different walks in this faith have been online influencers who have come out and done debates. And they didn't debate their own reading of the book. They debated everybody else's points for the internet, which drove me nuts.
I know.
You
That's
know?
obnoxious.
Yeah, because you can tell when somebody's doing that, and you're like, you haven't read the book, bro. You haven't read the book. Please just read the book. And everybody that I've found that has come back and read it, they're like, I see what you're saying, man. This book has so many points that seem like the canon is referencing or quoting it. So,
I know. I think the funny part is, I think the thing that trips most people out about the Book of Enoch is the story about the Watchers, which
mhm.
again is not actually the biggest part of the book. The book is much bigger than that. Just the story of the Book of the Watchers, and I
Mhm.
thought that's really interesting too, because from when we created Ancient Angels, that is really, I mean, I think it's a big deal. I think it's a big deal because it aligns with all the other things that we're told about the history we have in this on this earth. That all these different religions have these same kind of stories, and I think that that's the thing. It's like I feel like this is almost a maybe just a kind of a naive Protestant belief that that's not true. Like that all the other religions are complete fantasy, and I don't think
Yeah.
that they are. I
No.
think this is where like this idea comes from, is that as it says in the Bible, that these evil kings of Israel were worshiping the whole heavenly host. So it's like it's not
Yeah.
really any different than this story. It's like, why are they worshiping angels? Like,
Yep.
how would they know to worship these other angels unless there was some kind of interaction with them
That's
at
a few
times?
times in scripture too, the hosts of heaven's being worshipped. So it's not like just like one like blurb
Mm-hmm.
that's in there, you know. So when people get into seeing these things, I mean, it's pretty evident too. And I think it's obvious that these other religions or belief systems, they're not speaking the truth, but they're definitely telling you the truth. You know, like they're not telling you the real truth in the right light, but there's a lot of truth packaged into what they're talking about. You know, there's no question that we see, you know, possessions and rituals and things that go on, whether you're talking about the big sports events or anything that's out there. Everybody, even with what happened at the Olympics, I don't think anybody needs to question anymore, because people around the world, even non-believers, were like writing me going, they told me about it before I even saw it, because I don't watch any of that stuff for the most part anymore. And they're sending me like, have you seen this? The intro to this? Oh
Yeah,
my
yeah, yeah.
goodness. They even took it down from their website.
Dionysus.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like they're, you know, regular people who have no interest in this. I've had conversations with in the past, and then they're coming back going like, "Oh my goodness, Josh! Like, how? Like, why would they spend so much money and do these things and portray these things for what? It's like another Sesame Street or something. Like, there's it doesn't make sense,
Yeah,
you know?
it's not that people. I can see where people get confused, because obviously sometimes it talks about idols that have no power and that are not gods. But it's not because there's not other gods. It's just like literally just it's making fun of people who craft an idol, and then they use part of the wood to burn and cook their food with, and then the other part
Yeah,
they
yeah,
bow down and worship. I mean, it's mocking this idea. Is like that. Yeah, that's not going to deliver anyone. That's not going to save anyone. But yeah, the idea that these beings did interact with men and they did take wives of them. Again, that's biblical. Again, this one guy we debunked about that. That's what the Bible says. So I mean, the stuff that's in Enoch is really not any harder to believe. I mean, it's like it's really just talking. It's just telling the story a little more detailed. That's the thing that I'm always like, what's the big deal? It says that in Genesis 6. So if we know who the names of the angels were, and if we know a little bit more about the story about how this happened, it's still saying the same thing. I think the only thing it's really adding more detail to is the judgment that came afterwards toward them, and also that it tells them in detail about what they also did, about like giving them knowledge of things. But that seems evident. You know, it's funny because I've been bored part of this week, and I was first week doing full-time content creation, and I have had more of my nights free. And so I was like just flipping on like Netflix, and I was watching The Gods of Egypt. I've already seen that, but I watched it again. And I was watching last night and a little bit today, I was watching The Blood of Zeus. It's this anime cartoon on Netflix. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen that one. No.
It's okay. I mean, I'm not encouraging anybody to watch this stuff. Like you guys watch it. You guys are adults here. You guys watch it if you guys want to. But I always like to get like little clues into, the further in there, like their beliefs, at least what they believe. But I find it really interesting that in these pantheon of gods, like there's never any really good gods. You know what I mean? Like that Zeus is not good. The story of the blood of Zeus, I think they make a fictional demigod of a son that's not actually in the Greek pantheon. At first, I was disappointed. I thought it was about Hercules, but it's not. His name is like Hera, I think, or Huron. Hera is Zeus's wife, who was like the queen of heaven. But the funny thing is, Zeus cheats on her like a million times, and so like all his sons are like the ones he had with other women, like Apollo, like Hercules, Hermes. I think the only one that he had, the only one you kind of people really know is he had with Hera was Ares.
Yeah, Ares.
But the funny part about it is like he's got lots of these sons that are obviously from other women, and it's just like it's shown in the show, and it's shown, I guess, in Greek mythology that Zeus was not very good. He might have been the best of them, but they were all bad. Mm-hmm. And I think in the same way that, like, I think Osiris and the gods of Egypt, he's seen to be good, but most of the other gods, they have all these, they all have massive flaws.
Big time.
And it kind of makes sense that it's almost like that God allowed them to pretend to be gods, like to men, but he did not ever let them be put on the same level as him.
Yeah, for sure.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. And it's I mean, when you look at the Book of Enoch, I think when people are trying to rebuke it and stuff, I'm like, it's not even the best story that Satan could have come up with to deceive the whole world. Like it's like if Satan had no restrictions, I guess what I'm saying with that is there's obviously certain rules and certain limitations that Abba has given Satan throughout his existence with the earth and everything like that, because it's clear as day that he's following some kind of prerequisites, because the story that he's come up with, you can see it's not this well-oiled, like flawless kind of everything. You know what I mean? It's kind of, I don't want to say a charade because it's not necessarily like that, but it's a duping of sorts where it's just like reinserting things in here and then leading people to believe that it's fictitious or not fictitious or, whatever it is. But it's so often I just like think about it when people try and rebuke things like Enoch and stuff. I'm like, it's just that's a really plausible scenario. Like, this isn't some crazy kind of outlandish idea. When you read the Book of Enoch, it's like fallen angels, left their posts, were attracted to something, and, took on things like humans did, and they had offspring. And it even says the men of renown. So if a lot of people point that out to be like the elite controllers of the world from the beginning of time till now. So many of the things that it's speaking about contextually, it's not that far out. It's way more far out to see the stuff that like Hollywood and different things are portraying out there with like this kind of ludicrous, off the wall kind of randomness in the way they portray things. We know a lot of their best stories definitely seem to be like real accounts in some way that they've kind of manipulated the story with and stuff like that, like whether it's Eternals on Avengers or different things like that, even if it doesn't seem like it was like true events, some of it seems like, whoa, I could see that happening now. Like people start looking at Transformers. I always said, like, could you imagine like Messiah comes back, takes his people and just says, here, have your gods and demons, and just leaves the world to it. Next thing you know, you got 100-foot Transformers walking through and stuff. Like, I mean, that would be some outer darkness and weeping and gnashing of teeth, if you look at some of that stuff. But I don't think the Book of Enoch falls into that category where
No.
it's got the luminaries, which you can prove to the T. I mean, Second Enoch I think has the Gregorian calendar like spotted out, so I've always questioned that. The third book is definitely of Enoch is literally part of what it's one of the Kabbalistic books, so it's one of the ones that they subscribe to. So we know that second and third Enoch you should stay away from unless you're just trying to edify yourself and kind of learn some of the ways of darkness and how they're working and stuff like that, but you got to be careful with certain things like that. I think everybody who gets into doing anything like that should really have a strong foundation in the canon. Like, you should read the canon over and over and over and over and over and over, then maybe start preaching into some apocryphal writings and stuff. But before you go start reading like satanic culture and Kabbalah, and I've had friends that we've lost right out of the faith because of that. So at least get your foundation in order, and then maybe through some prayer and fasting, see when Abba wants you to venture down some of those other roads.
Yeah,
or if he ever wants you to.
Or you can just continue to follow along with the Ancient Roots of Life and Wellness podcast, and we can go over some of these books, and we can provide our own commentary. Again, our commentary is not gospel, but it is. The point is, we'll point out stuff that we have questions about, to know that we've never read these books with just complete faith that everything's perfect in them. Because again, we're even like reading two different versions of it. We're like, this is way different than this other one. So that's the other thing that somebody could have said, oh, well, this version, they read one version of it, and that's the one they said debunked. When it's like, it's not there's more than one. Point being. So anyways, guys, again, if you want to support this podcast, please check out Modern Roots Life. And again, tell us what you guys want us to talk about, because we can take breaks, as we said, and we probably will. We'll take breaks in this Enoch study, and maybe even hit us in the comments about what book after Enoch you guys are looking forward to hearing about, because I've had a couple that I was thinking, like, Wisdom of Solomon would be good, Second Esdras, we talked about Second Baruch. So a lot of these breakdowns, because I think that
Maccabees would be a good one too.
Yeah, the Maccabees, again, we could probably maybe even combine that with the study of Daniel 11 to get into, as I said earlier.
A great one, yeah.
Yeah, we could do that. So, yeah, the possibilities are mostly endless here. So that's the whole point, is that we continue this podcast on indefinitely. So yeah, but we appreciate you guys listening to us always. Love you guys. God bless.
Thanks, guys. Love you.